Hey guys, my name is Zach, and on today's Joy of the Hobbying, wow, Joy of Hobbying, we're going to work on the new Mattel Wally figure. So this is something that I've been working on for the past few days, getting my rust technique down, but it's coming along pretty good so far, and I wanted to share some of these techniques that we're doing on Wally in this video. So um, to start him off, we did add metallic paint to Wally, and that was done using Vallejo Dark Steel, which is a pretty decent paint. This is from the Mecha line. We then gave him a black wash using acrylic black, and then I'll get into the rust effect as we do the video, but it's essentially a mixture of paint and some Tamiya weathering powders. So let's looks like we've got a handful of people watching already. And I'm trying to do this in the garage. I think it just makes more sense. So bear with me as I fumble through hobbying in the garage with a camera and a mic. What's up, Zach? So we're going to start using brushes to do this weathering. You could do this with an airbrush, but essentially we're going to go with brushes that are towards the end of their life. I think they're going to give us a good bit of effect. And to start the rust off, we're going to use German Red Brown, which is a Vallejo surface primer. And we're going to start, I think, on the side panels first. So there's Wally there. We'll get some paint on the brush. And we're not really doing a dry brush per se, but we're doing like a stippling motion. So we do want to make sure a lot of the paint is off of the brush. Hey, buddy. And we're pretty much going to stipple this in. That was a bit too much paint on the brush. Okay, so we're going to focus a lot on the corners, areas where rust would naturally start to build up. I'm trying to do this a little awkwardly. The camera mic setup is not the best in the garage, but I think the lighting is going to be a little bit better. We do have some references of Wally that we're looking at, but I'm not really trying to capture the exact screen accuracy of every single bit of rust. Essentially, I'm just looking at how the rust is forming on his torso. I guess his body. And we'll lift this up. You can see here on the stripes, I've done some chipping already. That's just black acrylic paint. And we're going to make these sides of his torso meet the rust that we've already put on the front of the body. Again, I did want to do a little bit of stuff beforehand. So we have another guy on Facebook that says, "What's up?" Let me know who you are, because if you don't approve StreamYard, I actually can't see who you are. It just says Facebook user. But I assume it's someone named Zach, since Rainer said it could be either of us. And we'll do a little bit more rust on the steel here. And maybe a little bit more on the corner here. I think that looks pretty good. So while we're doing this side, I think it's smart just to go ahead and start getting his arms. And I'm going to pull up a reference of Wally. And let me go get those references. I'll be right back. All right, and we're back. So let's start going through our Wally references. All right. So, okay, so this is one of the references that we're going to use for the arm. And we'll start getting that weathering done. I think Damien's on. So if you're watching this live, we're using Damien's StreamYard account. So my name is Zach. Damien, the sweet angel that he is, lets us use his StreamYard account. Okay, let me see if I can. I'm trying not to get my brush too much in the way of the camera, but I do need to see what I'm doing. Okay, let me do this. There we go. All right. Oops, that's too much. And as we're stipling this on, we can always remove if we need to. I feel like doing this project, it's kind of awkward to do with the camera and the mic. Okay, let's focus on these corners of the arm here. And this red does look a little bit stark right now, but once we blend it in with some of the other rust paints that we're going to use, it ends up not being too bad. And essentially we want to try to, like I mentioned on the sides, kind of make the rust spots kind of blend into each other. We'll do some rust here on this little swivel thing. I think in some of the references it was pretty dirty from 700 years of picking up people's crap. So we'll add a nice little bit of rust, I guess, base on these parts here. We'll also get the front of the arm. And let me look at how he has the stripe. Okay, so there's some rust on the stripe as well. So we'll come back here and we'll start to lay some of our rust base in on the stripe. And this arm, I was actually dreading doing this arm, but like last night when I was laying down, but doing it's not too bad. I had a feeling it was going to be like constantly moving while I was trying to apply the paint, but it's actually fairly sturdy. And we did do some rust beforehand. I just wanted to work out the rust technique. I don't think I've ever done rust on a miniature. And I'm really glad that I did, because honestly, the method I was going to use did not work super well once I tried it. All right, so we'll add maybe just a little bit of rust here. That was too stark. And the nice thing is, since we kind of sealed our initial wash in, this does come off pretty nicely if we put too much on. Okay, so I'm happy with the way that this is looking here. Get some more paint off of this. Wow, Dean says, "I gay." And then I think he was trying to say hi, because Dean thinks that joke is funny in 2019. All right, so let's start working on these little corner pieces here. And then again, on some of this bottom part of the chassis, we're trying to make like an L here where these surfaces are meeting. And then again, maybe outlining the tracks. And you can see that this is starting to kind kind of blend in a little bit with that wash we put down. Trying to pick up some of that dark tone, and that's kind of the look that we're going for. Okay, so that's a decent first pass. Okay, so now we're going to go in with that dark steel, and we're going to use a different brush. We're going to save our red brush for when we need more red paint. And this application is going to be a little more sparing in terms of the amount of steel that we're going to use. And this dark steel is a really nice color. If you're doing a lot of like miniature painting, I almost like it better than true gunmetal, because most true gunmetal you're going to wash, and essentially the way this paint looks out of the bottle, it reminds me of how washed gunmetal looks. So I feel like you're kind of saving a step. And it's always good to save a step, because it's just one less thing that you have to do. So we're going to start lightly stippling this in around the red base that we've put. Probably focusing a little bit on the harder edges. So like there's a crease there, there's a hard edge there. And we're going to be sure to focus on those. Same with this front edge here. We'll focus a little bit there. And the arms are kind of awkward because they are like tubes almost, with the exception of that side. So we will we're going to kind of try to put this where we see fit. So let's go ahead and start doing kind of like this corner here. We'll add a little bit of silver there. And again, the amount of silver that we're putting is like very subtle. And this silver will help kind of add a dark tone to the rust, and I think it looks pretty cool. And we'll start to add this on the bottom side of the white thing. I think we went a little too heavy there. And then again, we'll put some more on the bottom of this. And essentially all this serves to tell, the story of his time in the past 700 years of picking up garbage and, getting all dirty and rusty and gross. I think the most impressive part about that is his battery is still good after 700 years. Maybe he found another battery. Okay, so that's looking pretty good there. And then the last step that we're going to do is we're going to come in with this Tamiya pigment, I guess you call it. I would just call it man makeup because it's like in a makeup type container. And we're going to put this on top of the red, and the steel as sort of the high point of the weathering. And that kind of blends it in with the yellow, blends it in with the, actually we need to add some steel there. But it just kind of blends everything in. Almost looks like, almost reminds me of like Cheeto dust. I was looking at it last night when I was doing our sample weathering, and that's what I kept thinking of when we were doing it. So let me see. We will probably have to go in and repaint the tracks. That is true, Dean. He would go dead if he changed the battery out. Yeah, I guess that is really impressive that his battery is still alive. And so looking at it here, you have sort of a rusty weathered arm and then just a lightly weathered arm. So pretty decent contrast. That is true, Dean. That is very true. And we'll go back in with some of this rust. Maybe a little bit more gunmetal. Dean, I think Rainer mentioned that you guys might be coming to visit this weekend. Be cool to do some content while you guys are here. If you guys are down. Someone says, Damien, when are you doing a part for the show? And Dean, come on, guys, let's see them customs. Well, my name is not Damien, but I think, I think one day it'd be fun to do a customs episode. So that's kind of where we're at right now on this side. We're going to start on the back since naturally the that side does lead into the back. So we'll start the back now. And then with the back, let me pull up some references. Okay, so that's Sean that's in the chat. Okay. What's up, Sean? Rainer's sending me a message. Okay, so let's go back to Wally references. Let's look at that back. Okay, so it looks like the middle of the back is actually pretty clean. So we're going to focus a lot of our weathering. And actually, it almost looks like... Oops. Okay, so let's start weathering here. So it looks like there's a lot of weathering on this part of the back. And then also on the top. So we're going to match sort of what we have on this side. So we're going to go in... Move the camera over just a little bit. And then again on this part here. Let me get some more paint. That's looking pretty good. We'll add just a few spots of rust in here, not too much. It seems like the front of him, like this middle section and this back middle section, they seem to be fairly clean. So we'll kind of do that. At least all the pictures that I'm looking at there seem fairly clean. Okay, so we're going to add that gunmetal again. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So that's with a little bit of gunmetal. I'm gonna add a tiny bit more. I guess it kind of makes sense this part wouldn't have that much rust because it seems like this would shield it from a lot of moisture. I guess that does kind of make some sense. So let's we'll put a little bit more gunmetal in there. I think we'll go on to the orange. Okay, so let's go into our orange Cheeto dust effect. I think that's a good way to call it. Okay, so we'll start here. We'll start blending that in. Oops, looks like we forgot one spot. So we'll go into a little bit more red. Right here. And then gunmetal. Dean says, do more of it on camera. Yeah, I'm trying. Okay, so let's get back in frame here. Okay, so we're doing a little bit of matching this tone here. Again, we're just stipling. That looks pretty good. All right, so let's go in with our orange again. Let's do this. There we go. Whoa. Oops. Sorry about that. There we go. All right, so we'll go in with our orange again, and we'll start blending this in with this existing spots of weathering. And that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to go in with a little bit more red on some of these spots. Before we move on, I think that's a good idea. So we will get Wally. We'll come in and put some high points of red on this. Nothing too crazy though. Initially, my idea was to do the weathering exclusively with the pigments, but for some reason, once I started to do it, it didn't really work like I thought it would work. I've seen some people do some of the weathering with pigments exclusively on like Hot Wheels cars, but I just could not get it to work. That was kind of frustrating. So I'm definitely glad we did some pre-work on this guy. I like that. I think I'm going to add. So we have another weathering kit over here. This is the, it's like mud texture. So we're going to go in and add just a little bit of grime in there, just to kind of blend it all together. I like that. Okay. All right, so I think that's looking pretty good on the backside of Wally. Maybe just a little bit of a little bit more of that powder. We'll start placing that down with the bristle side. That looks pretty good. Pretty grungy. Okay, so we'll start working on the right side. And we'll go in here with the red brush. Oops. Here's the red brush. God damn it. Okay, so let's put Wally down there for a second. Well, let's dry our brush off. Okay, let's load up on some red paint. And then we'll draw, stipple some of it off. Okay, so back to Wally. Let's see, I think we focused mostly on this crease here. I think that was a good spot to focus on. So we'll start continuing from this side here. And then we'll do this line of rust here. This line of rust matches up really well with the weathering from his arm moving up and down on that socket. Okay. And we'll start to match some of the tone of the weathering on the front and kind of extending that. And then again, we'll focus on this edge here as sort of like a reference point for weathering. Maybe we'll go a little bit heavier, or a little lighter rather, in some parts. So that's a good start. So let's get some of that gunmetal paint again. Again, we're using Vallejo dark gunmetal. Dean says, are you babysitting? No, there's a kid playing, like, I feel like they're playing on my, yeah, Dean, I don't know why. There's like, it sounds like they're right in my driveway, and I've checked twice, but they're like on the other side of the street. I don't know how they're so loud. Like I keep hearing them in my ear, and I know they're down the street. Okay, so this is why I like our new mic setup better. I'm using the Yeti today because we're in the garage, but yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, usually when Wally's out of frame, I'm trying to check back to see what's going on, but it sounds like there's like 5 kids in my damn porch. Get some weathering in this corner here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And then we're going to blend all that in with the, actually, you know what? We forgot to do the arm, the right arm. So let's get some more rust, the red paint, my rust base. Someone says, love the name of that paint. So the red paint that I'm using for the rust base is called German Red Brown. That's the Vallejo Surface Primer. And then for the metal that I'm using, it's Dark Steel by Vallejo in their Mecca color line. And then for the tone, it's the you can't see it, but it's the Tamiya pigment, and I think it's the rust, the soot, and then the gunmetal. Someone said they wanted them toys. That's amazing. Yeah, it's funny. We had the neighborhood kids over for my kid's birthday party, and they were pretty impressed with the toy selection. But I didn't let them stay too long in the office because them kids are wild. They're cool kids, but I barely let my own kid play in my office, so. Okay, so we'll start kind of following the edge here of this line. And this arm seems to be a little looser than the other one. That's kind of what I mentioned earlier when I said I was worried about doing this on camera, but it's not too bad. And then we'll start to stipple in some rust on this edge here. Yeah, there's a ton of kids that live on my street, so they're always outside playing, which is cool because I have a kid, so she likes to play with them. All right, so it's looking pretty good. Okay, so let's go in, put a little bit more red on this arm. So that is looking, we're getting pretty close to Wally being done. We'll put in some gunmetal on the arm. Again, that's a dark gunmetal color. So glad I was able to get on to do this tonight or today. It's been such a long day. It's been a good day, but it's been like a really long day. Had to go up to see my grandfather like an hour away, but I had work in the morning, so I had to do that first. And then after I got back in town, I got called into work again. So that's why we're starting a little bit later on the Joy of Hobbying today. Damn, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so let's go ahead with our Cheeto dust effect. And so we'll start using this to blend all these colors in. And I don't think this would work as well, like blending all the colors in, if we were using anything other than a yellow, an orange, or a red base robot or base metal. But because we are, it works super well to blend everything together. It just looks super good. Because it almost picks up like the paint and kind of like sponges it together. That's looking awesome. All right, so there's Wally so far. We've got the rust on the head already. And we got to do the bottom real quick. And then I think we just have to rust the tires and then repaint these treads. So let me repaint this tread first, because I know that's just going to take a second. And then we'll start to get the bottom done. Okay, so let's see if I have a brush that can paint black. Yeah, I picked all my shittiest brushes. I didn't think I was gonna have to actually paint, but I think this will be fine. Okay, so let's get this track. This is just Vallejo Surface Primer Black. We're just kind of touching up where we got some of the weathering colors on the treads. It wasn't that bad on this tread, but the other side was pretty bad. I think I was too distracted when I was doing this first track. There we go. It really wasn't that bad. I'm one of those people that can't like move on to the next step when there's things from the prior step that are not finished. It just kills me. I can't do it. All right, so let's blow through this backside just because these kids are getting annoying. And I know they're probably annoying for you guys too. So we'll put some more of this Surface Primer Red on here. And this primer works so well. I had bought it for the Mandalorian Black Series for the base of his armor, and it worked perfectly. But then I was kind of bummed out because I didn't really have a use for this color. And I've really never had a use for this color. I've had a paint in this color that I've only used once for an Admiral Akbar, as a base tone. And I was just thinking like, oh, okay, that kind of sucks. Like I bought all that paint and, you know, there's not really much we can do with it. But I've never painted rust, but I think this is a pretty decent rust base. I'm going to go pretty heavy with the red here. This is the bottom of the Wally unit. And so I imagine like the bottom is just like awful, at least in my head. I mean, I'm not sure how rust forms. I mean, I know how rust forms, but I'm not sure the pattern of how rust forms. But I imagine like the topmost surface and the bottommost surface would probably be the rustiest. And then like anything that is kind of covered, kind of like on the back, that plate, we didn't do too much rust. In my head, I imagine that that would kind of be protected from some of the rust. Maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about, but at least on times that I've seen and like actually really observed rust on cars, like old trucks and stuff, it seems to be that case. Like the hoods and the roofs are, you know, a little dirtier than some other spots. Okay, so that's looking pretty good, nice and grungy. We're gonna go in with that gunmetal color again, and we'll get our other brush. Dean says blow through that backside. You know it, buddy. All right, so we'll pick out some of the high points here for this steel. Yeah, this is a really easy painting technique. I think really, you know, if you find a Wally and you want to do this, you know, this is not the only way to do it, but you know, this is a really easy figure to work with. There's really not a ton of surface detail and stuff. So this could be like a project that you could work your way through like in a few hours, and you'd have like a really nice Wally figure. And you know, because this figure is so new, you don't have to break the bank going with some of the older figures from the movie, because I'm looking at buying some of those and they're quite expensive. Let's go back in with a little bit more rust and get this spot we missed here. And then we got to go in with our Cheeto dust and kind of work it all together. Okay, just a little bit more gunmetal, and then we'll go to the track, which should be pretty easy. Oops. Okay, so let's get one more brush. All right, so we got some gunmetal, and we'll start to staple this in. That was a bit too much black, or gunmetal rather. Yeah, Sean, it would be cool to do a customs episode one day. I think you got a good idea there, buddy. All right, so that is getting there. One thing I do want to do is get a little bit of this gunmetal on a small brush. And I want to weather this red detail here. I don't think I hit it with gunmetal, but I did want to put a little bit of a dry brush on that. Just like that. And then for the tracks, it would be just a really, let's get some black paint on this brush. Okay, so we'll start on the right tread. But I want to, so this is where we're at right now. I want to, actually, let's go back in with this orange. real quick. This side looks like it needs some orange. Look at that, we got a heart react on the video. That's pretty cool. Thank you to whoever you are, whomever you are, whoever. We'll put some more orange here just to blend all this stuff in. And then again on this bottom side here. Look at that. Maybe a little bit more on the front panel. I thought was really cool is that they matched some of the screen dents, some of the dents that he has on the screen use model in the toy. I thought that was pretty cool. Sometimes these guys release toys, but they're like maybe a little too clean or a little too perfect. Okay, so let's pan down quite a bit. And we will, okay, so let's see. Let's find a brush to use for the dry brush. I think we'll use this one here. It's not the best dry brush, but it's the biggest brush that I have on the table. And I think for the color, let me look at the tracks, the reference. Because his tracks are actually not that bad in the movie. I thought I was going to do a lot of dust effect on them, but they're really not too bad. And actually, you know what? Before we do the dry brush, we have to do the, let's get some more, we'll get some more of this orange. We'll really load up the bristles on this one. Same with these things. And I want to add some orange and some grime into here before we do the other parts. And I think we're going to go in with a little bit of red paint as well, but I want to base it in orange first. Okay, so that's one shred. We'll do the same thing to this other shred. This will serve as the basis for this rust. And then we'll finish the paint job of these with red, and then we'll come in with more of this dust as like the last layer. You can see how that is tinting that gunmetal to have a little bit of an orange twinge to it. That looks really good. Okay, so we're going to very lightly, emphasis on lightly, hopefully, come in with some red. Let's pick that up a little bit. Okay, so we're going to start just lightly stipling in some rust onto his wheels. One of my favorite shots in the movie is when he hangs up his wheels inside his house. It's so adorable. What a guy. Okay, so we're going to come in here. That's a little too heavy-handed. We're going to come in here lightly, stipple in some paint. That looks pretty good. Kind of just to get some color on these. And then what I want to do is come in with this gunmetal. Do I have any gunmetal left? Nope, I gotta pour some more. And I want to just very lightly dry brush the high points of those treads. And this will be a true dry brush rather than a stipple. Okay, so that'll tone it back to silver a little bit. And because we did do a wash on this with the dark gunmetal, this almost acts like a little bit of a chrome contrast. It's too much paint on the brush. Okay, so we'll come in here. Like I said, we'll come in with a dry brush and start to bring some of that color value back up to silver. And then we'll hit it with one more layer of orange. And I think that'll be good. And what's nice is with the orange, we can come in here and do like a light coat, you know, just kind of rubbing it in a little bit. And then you can really hit it with like a good amount loaded up on the brush like this, and like really put in like some really nice spots of rust like that. That's a pretty good look. So again, we're going to come in gently, and maybe that was a little bit too much, but it's okay, guys. Rub it off. And then we will kind of pick and choose some spots to put in like some concentration of rust. Sort of like we did up top. Okay, so that's that. And then we're going to come in with a dry brush of Timeless Gray. Okay, so let's get the paint on the table. We'll get our dry brush going. And this is pretty much just to highlight the tracks. So let's get this arm out of the way, and we'll start brushing this on. You can see that that action starts to highlight the tracks. We would get the underside too, just to be thorough. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So that's without and with the dry brushing. We'll put a little bit more paint, and then kind of brush it off. And then we'll start applying more dry brush. And that's pretty much it for the dry brush. Let me just take a look at it and see what else we need to do. And then I think what I'm going to do, so we have that dry brush. I'm going to take this mud kit, and I'm going to get some of this sand here from this kit. Mix in some of this sand here. I think we're going to put this on these treads here, just to show that he's been kind of traversing the everything. I think I might come in with the mud too. I think that's a little bit lighter than I wanted, but okay, so let's. I try not to overuse the mud, but it's just so damn good. I think I am gonna go in with mud. Yeah, that's much better. Yeah, the other colors are cool, but man, that mud looks dope. And I think that's looking pretty good. I think I'm gonna let all this dry. And I think I might go in with one black wash on the tires, just to kind of cover up some of those low points in the tires. But that is not a bad look, in my opinion. It's pretty good. And we'll put him on this little base. That's not his diorama, but we had been working on that diorama for the blurg, but I thought it looked pretty cool for Wally for now. So that's pretty much it for this Joy of Hobbying. I'm going to seal him, and like I said, give it a few days, and then I'll probably come back and put a wash on those tracks, but otherwise I think it looks pretty good. I think it does not look bad at all. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for Small Talk recording tonight. Stay tuned for Small Talk recording tonight. I think they're going like at 9 or 10. And keep hobbying, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Collecting Weekly and on the next Joy of Hobbying.